uSports, Central Out of Deal, Charles Ashley, voice of the Lobos, Robert Portnoy on with us. We just presented this week's Cool Springs Player of the Week, Brady Patterson. No doubt in my mind, guys. Now here it's time to move on and talk some 3 and out. And the first topic, why would it not be the New Mexico Lobos taking on Nevada? At Nevada, you're going to be there. You're going to make the trip and everything, so we don't need to say anything. You're the guy with all the info.
He didn't even want to talk about this today.
I'm just, I'm an upset fan.
We get to the office, do we really have to talk about the Lobos?
Look,
yes.
I let my emotions get the best of me. Everyone knows, I've been a lifelong Lobo fan, and I let it get the best of me. It's hard to talk about it when they're losing, so that's why we brought you on. You could talk about it.
Well, they've definitely had some games get away at the finish. I think that's the thing. They're so close to being right in the mix in terms of winning the regular season title. You think about the number of games that they've lost right down at the finish. And that's kind of something since Coach Neal and Coach Alford arrived here back in '07 that they've been really good at is winning those close games. Close games both on the road and in the pit. And this season, there have been some that have gotten away. The game at Wyoming certainly comes to mind, at Air Force. Certainly hosting Utah State, that's one that they wanted to close. And then, they were there dead even with 5 minutes to go against Boise State at home, too. That's 4 league games. If you just win 3 of those, you're right in the middle of the regular season chase and looking at a possible ring. But ifs and buts, right? And candies and nuts.
The truest definition of a young team. And I think some of our fans get caught up in years past where we've had experienced teams. But if you go all the way back to the Reese Gary years where they were young, we were taking those same type of losses, the same type of lumps. I think the team has what it takes to get over the hump maybe next year, but this year, what do you think they're shooting for now? Now that they can't win the title, but they can do what in the playoffs?
Well, that's the thing. They've got 6 regular season league games left, and I'm looking at it as kind of like a laboratory for Coach Neal and his staff. They're trying to get this team set up to go win 3 or 4 in a row in Vegas and make it a 4-peat in the conference tournament, because obviously that puts you in the NCAAs and you'll have another ring. But it's not just how young the team is, it's how inexperienced the team is. And I'm talking about not just the freshmen, and the freshmen are playing and contributing a lot, but it's the guys who are in significant roles who were not in those roles a season ago. And now you're expecting them to do things in the heat at the end of games that they've never been asked to do before. I'm talking about like a redshirt sophomore, Devin Williams, Obachajet, a returning player, but who's never been a starter or a key contributor. And now you're asking Deshaun Delaney to go from being the 5th option to being the 1 or the 2 option. The only guy that's really had sort of this type of responsibility is Hugh Greenwood. They are a very young team.
Very young. And that's a great point you brought up, because I think a lot of times fans get caught up in stats. They'll say, well, he could score more. He's such a good scorer. Speaking of Delaney, it's a hard role to adjust from the 5th option to, hey, if you don't score, we might not win. Talk about how hard of a transition that is.
Oh, and for Delaney, it's a great example, Delaney, because not only has he now gone from being the 5th option to being, the 1 or 2 option, but he's also a guy that, as a junior college player, was down on the block with his back to the basket a lot of the time. And now he's playing out on the floor and being asked to do things off the dribble and create offense for everybody, not just for himself. We saw the best of what he can be in the last game. He scored 21 points once. That's 1 point off of his career high. And he was fantastic. But he doesn't have that aggressive mindset, really, to go and do that every night. He needs to. They need him.
You mentioned that Wyoming game, and we talked about that even off air. How big was that? It just deflating. The Lobos thought they might have snuck one away at Wyoming, who was leading the Mountain West Conference at the time, and then to not come home with the win after that. And then what's happened since then, the Lobos losing 3 of 4, it could be completely flipped around, and the Lobos could be in first place right now in the Mountain West if they hold on to that win.
Well, that's a game certainly that's a blow to your confidence. There's no doubt about that. They had it wrapped up in regulation, they let it get away. They had it wrapped up in overtime, they let it get away. And there was no, sneaking out of there with a win. At the end of the night, Larry Shiat was saying that that's the best defensive team, not just in the Mountain West, but, in the West. The Lobos, talking about the Lobos, they played Wyoming at Wyoming's game in their house and had them dead to rights and just didn't finish. So, yeah, a blow to the confidence, and maybe that is something that's shown up a little bit at the end of games.
So, you're around the guys a lot. Have you noticed anything changing as far as confidence-wise, where you feel as if now there's the pressure of not winning, or giving away games that are close that usually they traditionally were winning in the past. Is there a change in demeanor around the team right now?
No, I haven't seen that. Now, this most recent game against Colorado State, that's a very tough ask of almost any team in the league. You know, I happened to see them host San Diego State. The Rams host San Diego State. That was the same day the Lobos lost in Laramie, and the Lobos played early, and they played the late game. So I drove down and watched that game in Fort Collins, and they had a double-digit lead on San Diego State in the first half. So they're really good at home, really tough in that building this year, and they can really score the ball.
Here's what I think is important, and you'll probably agree with me, is stay away from being a 7 seed and below right now. I mean, you don't want to be playing the first day of that Mountain West Conference tournament. You want to have at least the bye into the next round. You don't want to have to, like what Charles said, play 4 games, right?
Yeah, if you're in the top 6, then you don't have to play the first day. And there are a lot of dangerous teams in the Mountain West. I mean, it's a very balanced league. You could say that it's not as top-heavy as it was with 2 titans at the top of the league like last year with New Mexico and San Diego State. But I would argue that the middle of the league is better. You know, that the average teams are better, that there's more balance. Now, there's still some bottom feeders.
League? If San Diego State say they win the conference tournament, is this a one-bid league?
There are 1 or 2 teams, if everything falls right with the rest of league play, that are in the conversation for an at-large berth if San Diego State were to say win the regular season and the tournament titles. I think Colorado State's in that conversation. I think Wyoming's in that conversation.
Yeah, and I saw Joe Lenardi had Boise as the last 4 out. So you're right. Maybe 1, 2 teams getting in, but I honestly think that they have a chance in Vegas. As you mentioned, it's a very balanced league. If I'm Coach Neal, I'm saying,
for some reason they play great in Vegas too.
If I'm looking at my guys, I'm saying, we haven't been blown out.
No.
We've been in every game. So, guys, get it together. Let's go to Vegas, make a run. What do you think?
It's right there for the taking. Now, the hottest team in the league is Boise.
Yes.
And Boise has come from nowhere after dropping their first 2 or 3 league games to just catch fire. Not surprising, they can score. There's a premium on scoring in the Mountain West this season. There are a lot of really good defensive teams, highly ranked defensive teams nationally. The teams that score maybe are going to separate themselves, and I'm talking about Colorado State and Boise perhaps. But yeah, they're in the at-large question as well, Boise, along with Wyoming and Colorado State. Colorado State actually has the highest RPI of the teams in the Mountain West not named San Diego State.
But you don't want to mess with fire. Just win.
Oh,
win
for sure.
Your conference.
Oh, yeah.
Because let's face it, we haven't
Grab
had a
that
lot
automatic
of respect
berth
this year.
Guys, we've got to
West.
run out of here. It's always a pleasure. Robert Portnoy, the voice of the Lobos, going to make the trip up to Nevada as the Lobos going to take
Always
on
like having Rob
Nevada.
come
We
in.
appreciate it, Robert.
Great
Hey,
stuff,
come
guys.
on back. We've got some more to talk about here on 3 and Out uSports Central.